Exceptional Randos Show is produced live in Sunroom Studios Space Capsule in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Well, that was random.
Exceptional Radio.
That's actually like the first time that we've had the OG Exceptional Randos Show intro play in the last year, I believe. Which is actually technically random. You know, the best kind of right is technically correct. So
I feel like the ad-lib ones had to get exhausting.
Oh man, you got to read a lot to come up with really, really weird shit for the ad libs. I read a lot, but yeah, maybe in my early 20s when my ADHD brain was in full effect, that would have happened more fluidly. But I don't know. It's fantastic out for almost January. I mean,
I'm digging this weather.
It's like teetering on like actually kind of pleasant. I don't object to days that aren't super bright. And I don't object to this weather either. It's like my hair's behaving, my skin feels good. We've had a few really cold nights, but nothing so bad that whatever the atmosphere put down on us, you know, stuck around. Nothing sticks around and just leaves, and like by the middle of the day it's all gone, like it never happened. Meanwhile in China, they're still facing horrible cold spells and snow and lack of infrastructure. I shouldn't be laughing about this stuff, but it's one of those things that helps me to reflect on just how nice the weather actually is here. I guess it sucks for people who really want snow.
That
really
may
badly.
hit us yet, though.
I know. There's a lot of just warm air being pulled up north, and it's got to come back down eventually. It can't all be siphoning into China right now. I mean, could it? I mean, how? What's the probability that China has developed like some kind of atmosphere engine that enables them to siphon moisture from the other half of the planet, and then they just happen to foolishly turn it on during winter and dumps in snow? Well, maybe they want snow. Snow's easier to manage. Maybe no, it's not. Cold's never easier to manage.
I guess in theory it's easier to manage, but then like an avalanche happens, and then you're like, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to be able to
manage this shit.
Plow this shit.
Oh, man. So last week when I was going on my tirade about cold and battery technology, it looks like, let's see, who was it that I was reading about this? It's like, now I can't remember the name of the company. They're going to try and bring, a sodium ion power plant to market, like a battery that's based off of sodium phosphate technology, which has remarkably stable cold performance. Like it has less energy density than the lithium technology that we've got at our disposal, but unlike lithium, it doesn't lose power like at really low temperatures. It still has similar power densities at, comfortable to us temperatures. And that's good. The downside is that they form dendrites like twice as fast, and so their life expectancy is considerably less. But sodium is one of the most plentiful elements on the planet. So maybe there's something more sustainable there, considering we have vast oceans containing sodium. And it's temperature stable, which is like, that's like a big win. Even in cold, like some diesel engines won't start, some gasoline engines won't start. But if we have temperature stable power storage, those things will use magnets, and those things will definitely move. So that's really exciting. It's just a matter of how long does it take for this kind of technology to get into the mainstream and be safe and reliable and easy to swap batteries out. Because I think that's going to be the big issue, is how are we going to get these batteries back to the manufacturer for reconditioning so they can extract whatever remaining material is viable and then put that into their remanufactured batteries. It's all really exciting stuff. Of course, like a cargo ship full of batteries had to they started out in Vietnam, and they had to stop short in Alaska because one of their cargo holds caught on fire because lithium batteries catch on fire.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems that I'm still wondering how they're going to fix. It's like the notion of keeping everything super sealed. It's like, yeah, but then it's going to be really hard to get to when it needs to get changed. So there's all these things about the necessity to switch out the battery like frame, because like it seems like as of right now there just needs to be so many batteries that they have to, you know, put it in that skateboard frame or put it in like a gigantic
cartridge,
right, which makes it even more likely to have some crazy fucking explosion happen. So that's where I'm like, the biggest problem I've seen with the skateboard frame is that the metal plate that's supposed to protect it, it's not impervious to damage. Like there's like a limit and a threshold where once that metal plate gets damaged, then, you know, that car is effectively, unless they're able to replace those metal plates, which seems to be like, I don't know, man.
I think those metal plates are integral to the structure of the batteries themselves.
Oh, for sure. But the only reason I even bring it up is because I just watched a video about a Hyundai Ioniq owner who went over like a rock or something and it damaged the metal plate. And the quote they got to replace their battery was more than a new car. Which doesn't make any fucking sense, obviously. But when the quote is like 5,000 Canadian dollars or whatever that is, you know, I don't know what the exchange rate is right now because it happened in Canada, but the difference in the cost was like 5,000 Canadian dollars
for a new Ioniq.
I think the new Ioniq was 55. Or wait. I think the new Ioniq was 55,000, and then they quoted him 60,000 to replace the battery. So it's like
for a Hyundai.
Yeah, and in the process, it's like that can't be possible, and like it just can't be physically possible for that to be a reality. Where it's like, unless there's like a subsidy or something on the first battery that is invisible, where it doesn't actually cost that. It's just the taxpayers.
Maybe it's like a dealer cost because the amount of time involved to remove the battery and then install a new battery is actually. But
this was really back at the factory. No, this is like they were going to send it back to the factory. Yeah. So no, if that was the case, that would clearly make sense. But no, they were going to send it back to the factory, and that was what the factory replacement quote was. Where it's like that doesn't make any sense.
Shame on you, Hyundai. Shame on you.
Well, and then they looked into it, and I guess on the price manifest for the actual car, it looks like it's like 11,000. I think it's 11,000 or something like that. in the original build. But that's where I'm like, what they show on the manifest does not mean that is without subsidy, because there could be subsidies in there on individual parts or on cumulatively on the
like a batch of them.
Yeah, which again, that's where if the subsidy's just on the vehicle, it could actually be just subsidizing the battery, but it looks like they're subsidizing the whole car, but the battery's the thing that actually costs that much. But in the process, they didn't make it clear, and they just kind of like tried to offer the dude a discount on a new vehicle. And he's like, I don't want to get this new vehicle if this is what I have to deal with every time. So I don't blame him for having that reaction. But I just don't understand why the rollout of electric cars would be so sloppy to make it seem like that's even possible. Like, if the subsidy is doing such that the battery right now is more than what they're selling the vehicle for, it's tantamount to when Microsoft was selling Xboxes at a loss because they were like, oh, we'll make it up when we sell the games. And it's like,
well, they did.
Yeah, of course they did, but that only worked
because it's a video
the
game.
Market, I mean, only because the market played out that way. They got lucky.
Yeah.
It's like taking that kind of risk. If COVID had happened and people had lost their jobs and weren't able to afford, or the microchip shortage had happened when they had decided to make that move or whatever, and then suddenly, like, they have a bunch of Xboxes.
If that battery costs $60,000 and it's subsidized completely, and the car itself only costs $55,000,
it doesn't make sense. Exactly.
Does that mean that that's a $115,000 car?
I mean, on paper, it, like, after it gets repaired, but that's not going to be like, it's going to resell for 10,000 less than that. So then technically, you're in the hole for like 125. But at the end of the day, if you try to sell it.
But even then, like, yeah, that's a lot to spend on it. But if the battery wasn't subsidized initially, would the car cost $115,000?
Maybe, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe that may be what the case is, and if that's the case, then it's like
buy the car, the first battery is free, but the second battery costs full price. It's like a power tool.
Too early.
It's like a power tool. You buy the drill and they give you the free battery, but the battery is a tiny 1.5 amp hour battery, and you burn through it in 20 minutes of use. So you have to go buy the 4 or 6 amp hour battery, but that thing costs like 3 times as much as the drill.
Well, okay, here's the issue. So on the one hand, it's about the cost, but on the other hand, it's about destroying the fucking planet and stopping that at any cost. Because that's where I'm like, I had this discussion with my dad, and he was talking about, you know, how like expensive electric cars are. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if they're expensive if there's a fucking hole in the ozone because too many people are driving internal combustion engines, or the power that's supplying the electric vehicles is coming from fossil fuels, because we're going to fucking die. So like, it doesn't matter if the shit's expensive or if it's cheaper or if it's as equivalent as gas, because the point is to try to not have as many vehicles on the road that are polluting like in real time.
Yeah,
like,
no, I guess I have sticker shock at the idea that an unsubsidized electric vehicle might be $115,000, because that's way out of the range of what any normal human being is ever going to spend on a single car. But the issue is, if people keep buying internal combustion cars, then they're not going to be able to buy anything. Yeah.
Because we're all going to be fucking dead. And that's my point, is like, you can only use internal combustion vehicles in tandem with burning fossil fuels for everybody to live for so long
Yeah.
before it chokes us all out. And that's where I'm like, this happened before like automobiles were
With whale
widespread.
blower.
Well, because I don't know if you know about the Great Fog in London that killed a bunch of people in the 1800s.
I feel like this is something I would have read about, but I can't remember.
You might have read about it years ago, but the issue is nobody really knows about this in America because it's like not really American history. But at one point, the pollution from industrialization, not automobiles, from industrialization was so bad that the fucking fog was just killing people.
Oh, the Great Smog of London.
Smog, the Great Smog. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I even got it. But the issue is I didn't get the event wrong. I just got the name. So what year was it? Because that's what I'm like.
1952.
Oh, wow. That's even more recent. So I know there was one that was like before that, though, because there's definitely one that happened in the 1800s because it was from like industrial runoff.
Yeah, I'm gonna find this now. Keep coming back to the great.
Yeah, 1873.
Yeah,
268 deaths.
1879 through 1879.
Another one in 1870. So that's where I'm. Yeah, this is something that happens most
4 months of fucking killing people.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, it happened again in 52 apparently, but this is the one I was thinking of is from burning coal. So that's where. Yeah, it's just
apparently this has been going on in England, in London specifically, since the 1200s.
Well, and it seems like there's a lack of air movement, which also contributes to their frequent, shitty days with no sun.
1873, 1879, 1890.
Not smoke, but
particulate matter
or whatever it is just sits. Yeah, the particulate matter. That's again.
Even today, 10,000 Londoners are thought to die prematurely due to NO2 pollution. London has
because it was
issues like modern China today.
Victorian pollution. It wasn't cars. It was Victorian pollution just killing people. They were just dropping dead, like because of the fucking smog choking them out, not having like at the most dense points. Like some people died from bronchitis, but at some of the densest points, there just wasn't enough oxygen. So it was like choking people out in like real time. So that's where I'm like, we know what pollution does. So that's where if an electric battery costs $100,000, but we can drive them, that's what the buses should be rolling. I mean, in some cities they do, but individuals obviously can't shoulder that cost unless they're rich. So that's, all the rich assholes drive some Teslas or whatever the fuck, where they can overpay for it, but expecting regular people to then try to drive electric F-150s for $100,000 was never going to happen. So that should have never happened. Like they should have made the internal combustion F-150 and then stop making it. And then those things becomes collector items or whatever. And then people who want to keep driving pickup trucks, I guess you keep driving the ones that were made between 1950 and 2025 or whatever the fuck. And if people want to create their own pickup truck company, they probably won't be able to get a government subsidy to do that after 2034 or whenever we're supposed to be going all electric. But it's like, if people want to drive pickup trucks, good for them. But our government shouldn't be subsidizing internal combustion vehicles that then choke us all out. Which is where, again, I'm fine with them subsidizing electric vehicles. But then when they turn around and then subsidize the oil companies or fossil fuel companies to supply the electric car companies, it's like it's just moving the pollution down the chain. So these old people can't trust them to get rid of the pollution they caused. Like they put the hole in the ozone layer, not us. We're the first generation that started to repair the ozone layer.
So have you read about how at COP28 they showed up to talk about how to transition away from fossil fuels, but then I think it was the Saudi, it was the Saudis. I think it was the Saudis that were like, yes, but we still need to figure out what we're going to do with our existing supply of fossil fuels. And so they were still negotiating how to manage the existing fossil fuel issue. And I think it's actually, I want to believe it's like a in good faith that they're like, yeah, we need to get away from this, but we also have to figure out how to taper away from our reliance on this stuff so that it's not just like turning one switch off and then expecting everyone else to figure out where to go.
I mean, that's the only realistic thing. Whether it's good faith or not, that's the only realistic.
That's the only way to do it.
It's like it's not going to be a switch.
Oh, I know it's not. It can't be an abrupt switch. It has to transition. And I thought it was actually really interesting. Like there is, I don't really have an opinion one way or another because I didn't read the transcript of what he was talking about. I've only read accounts or journalists' accounts of what was talked about. But from what I've gleaned, there's a lot of reporting that is trying to paint them out to be the bad guys in the situation. Like they're like, oh yeah, they were just using this situation to broker deals to like continue to sustain their oil empire. But then there's just as much media coverage of this where it's like, yeah, this is a good thing. We're coming up with a plan to move towards the future. And so it reminds me again of that like media liberal conservatism chart that popped up and seemed to be like a dance, like a moving goalpost every week. One media outlet was becoming more and more conservative or more and more liberal, depending on who entered the data at that moment. And it just reminds me like how much of this stuff is just news anymore, and how long has it been since there has actually been news, or could we ever actually believe the news? Has the media ever not been like a state puppet, basically?
I mean,
because it's either like the internet used to be fun and now it's all ads. It's like everything's trying to, when I find something somewhat interesting, that all of a sudden it's like ads. And if I find something that's just really, informationally benign, like there's nothing here. It's like there's like no effort to get me to go anywhere else. They're like, oh yeah, just stay here, read all you want, check out our videos, we won't even put commercials on them.
So I have ad guard, ad blocker, and then what's the other one on?
Well, I just think it's funny that the content that I see that seems to be the most.
Well, no, I'm getting to something. I have ad guard, ad blocker, ad block plus, ad block, and I still see native ads. And that's where like YouTube is becoming a funnel for Patreon, because even with 3 ad blockers, I still end up seeing ads on YouTube because they think by having people put ads in the content, they're going to get around the ad blockers, when in reality, I'm just watching less YouTube now.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm getting tired of having to skip over the paid content in the video, where I'm like, it's too tiresome to sustain it. Like I'll watch YouTube maybe like an hour or 2 a day where it's like looking at random stuff, but then there's like certain content like Mystery Science Theater that's like, I'll always go there or somewhere else to watch it. So it's not like I don't really count that because I can watch it on Tubi or other places, but I'm not seeing ads when I'm doing it anyway. But that's because they haven't put native ads in MST3. Well, I guess they have, because they advertised the Gizmoplex. But even then, it's like I still would, there's a period where I'd go watch Mystery Science on MST3K.com because I'd rather give them traffic than YouTube. But all their shit's being hosted at YouTube, so it's like we're going in circles trying to appease the advertisers who basically are holding us all hostage. Which is like, I don't understand when advertising took over everything. It's like I mean, I I understand the chronology and like the Madison Avenue guys and the Madman, I understand what happened, but the notion of like going from there must have been a time where people weren't just like, I mean,
Man, I
ads
know
like that
you remember
didn't
bulletin
exist.
boards and message boards where it was all text, and there were only the most basic images, in a frame that you didn't have to interact with. And I know you remember that version of the internet, not because I remember that version of the
Well,
internet.
I'm not even talking about the internet. I'm talking about before advertising existed in that manner for
Oh,
like mass media. Like when we had like Sears magazines coming
yeah,
to our, that's like the same as a fucking pop-up window.
the Sears and the
Like
Walgreens and
all that unsolicited advertising
Woolworth.
mail is no different. It's pop-up windows that have a carbon footprint. At least when you close a pop-up window, it doesn't like have to be recycled or some shit. They're fucking annoying, but like the ads that come to our mail
Yeah.
are so much more destructive. Again, that's the same generation that thinks like, oh, because electric cars are expensive, we should just keep driving gas cars. It's like, no, we need to stop fucking sending unsolicited advertising in the form of things that incur like carbon footprints. Cause that shit, it has a cost. And even though it's cheap, there's a cumulative cost for that thing eventually having to be either put in the landfill, fucking recycled at a cost, or burnt and put back into the air as particulate because some fucking jackass needed me to see that they have a sale on fucking lawnmowers or some shit. I don't need a fucking lawnmower. I live in a goddamn apartment.
I mean, I completely agree. I've been striving to maintain and have just a paperless desktop for almost all of my adult life, and I can't get away from having. Actually, wait. Okay, maybe in this moment I've succeeded because as I look around my desk area, my workspace, I don't actually have any paper in front of me that's not supposed to be here. So in this moment, I have accomplished my goal of having a paperless desk. By paperless, I mean unnecessary, not here for a reason. Doesn't contain any notes or information, or not a manual, not like an actual paper physical manual for software that might be so complex and old, ancient, tied to hardware shit, that you actually need a paper manual. And sometimes that's really useful because sometimes it's nice to have a manual in front of you instead of having to look at a screen. Because not everything exists on a tablet yet, or ever will because it's too old. But yeah, maybe I'm not the only person. We're not the only people who are trying to have a paperless desk, and this is the result: is that we end up with more spam in our browser. And I think about it like that, I'm less opposed to it. Like way less opposed to it. If I could just stop receiving all those weird mailers that give me like coupons for stuff that I'm never gonna buy. Oh man, I can't believe I'm actually advocating targeted marketing now. Fuck.
Man. I guess my thing is like, if targeted marketing were actually good, I wouldn't mind it so much.
Yeah.
Because there's times when I can't think of maybe comic books. Oh, you know what? I hate to say it, but I think Amazon's targeted marketing is probably the best of all I've ever experienced. But
Yeah.
it's just because it has so much data that it uses correctly.
Yeah. They have your browsing history, your purchase history.
Yeah, but everybody else
They know how
who
much
has
time you
my-
spend looking at certain types of searches.
But the issue is everybody else that you have to make an account or use a fucking membership card or whatever has the same shit. They just aren't as good at making things specific for me as an individual or making an algorithm that can be flexible enough to accommodate an individual. So that's where I'm like, even Pandora is terrible at recommendations. I mean, I'm not buying anything, but if I like play a track, if I want to listen to like, let's say, Childish Gambino, it's only going to play Childish Gambino one out of every fucking 10 tracks. So I'm like, I didn't ask for shit like Childish Gambino. I asked for Childish Gambino. Don't play me fucking 10 other tracks and then ask, is this what you like? No, I said Childish Gambino radio. So that's where shit like that, or YouTube recommendations basically having nothing to do with what you just watched.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, if you watch an Exceptional Randos podcast, the next thing they recommend you is not going to have anything to do with our channel. It's going to be something completely fucking random, which is on, I guess,
That's
on
in line with what we promote.
But that's what I was literally about to point to that. It'll sometimes be like thinking that we're doing some religious shit, and then the thing it'll recommend will be like a church broadcast or something where I'm like, just because this is on a Sunday and we're like talking about different things doesn't make it a religious podcast. But the idea that that would be the type of thing, instead of our own shit, you would think we have so many hours worth of content that if somebody happens to listen to one of our things, maybe they'll listen to another one. You would think maybe, I don't know, but no, let's fucking recommend them some other. Why not just go to Joe Rogan? Let's go recommend them Joe Rogan straight to that. Which it's like, it's frustrating. But I also don't want to move to like Rumble because they just do shit like enable racists even more. So you can't just go moving your shit either because it's way too. I think when platforms try to compete, they try to court any and everyone, and that always includes racists. So any platform that's emerging in recent times is just gonna like be way more racist than whatever you're coming from.
You reminded me that one of the reasons I discontinued my use of Pandora's platform, I had created a drum and bass channel because I wanted to listen to some drum and bass, and they kept recommending stuff that's not drum and bass, mostly dubstep. And I don't have a problem with dubstep, but when I want to listen to drum and bass, I don't want to listen to dubstep. Like, that's a kind of that's a pretty jarring transition from one to the other. Sometimes, most of the time, in my experience. But after a while, all the channel did was suggest Goldie tracks to me. And I like Goldie, but not enough to listen to Goldie all the time. It was like only Goldie or dubstep that I had to put the thumbs down on. And then I had a 90s rock station, like a 90s like alternative rock. I guess it started out as a 90s rock thing, but it became a Seattle sound where it was only playing like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam. And I don't like Pearl Jam enough to even listen to Pearl Jam. And I spent half of my time like thumbs down the same Pearl Jam songs over and over again. It was maddening. That and the commercials. So I ended up, not using it. And I think that's what's going to end up happening to YouTube with me. I'm just going to get tired of it because I don't want to see those shorts. Sometimes the shorts are funny, but they're mindless. And after the first one, it's like, what the hell's this crap? Also, YouTube thinks I'm really interested in Minecraft. Like way more than is reasonable. I never search for Minecraft, and yet I get recommendations for like some teenager, probably barely a teenager, like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old playing Minecraft. Oh man, I don't even know how that happens. I'm afraid to go to other platforms actually, because what the hell are they going to suggest to me?
Man, I don't know. Yeah, that's where there's a lot of things about the way things are happening. It's just like I'm not seeking out new. There's like, if Twitter finally goes down one day and I wake up and log on and it's just finally down, I'm like, I'm not trying to find a replacement for that.
Yeah.
Like,
seriously.
if YouTube goes down and we can't upload anymore, it's like that is not, it wouldn't be necessarily the end of our like capacity to do it, but it would be like if YouTube went down, then what else, I don't know. But
man, don't say that. That's gonna like tick some weird neurotic red flag for me, and then I'm gonna start downloading everything again. Actually, I probably need to do that anyways. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to do that anyways. Damn it. I still need to do that. Okay, never mind. That's just like terrifying. We've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of.
No, I don't think the government would let YouTube go down. They need to have a platform to monitor people on. So.
Other than Facebook.
Let people upload their weird fucking manifestos and use it as evidence in their trials. Like, yeah, we have your YouTube page right here.
We've transcribed all of it.
Hate government, liberal, whatever, libertarian 345, and your manifesto is 2 hours long. So I doubt the government would ever let YouTube actually go down.
Libertarian Manifesto 345. I wouldn't trust the transcript though. He would suggest that it was transcribed by an AI. He would object to the submission to evidence. Oh man. Yeah. No, that's optimistically probably the likely scenario, is that a repository of information like that would never be allowed to simply just shut down. But sometimes I feel like their algorithm is trying to drive me away. Although when I look now, right now in this moment, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whole bunch of things about food, and right now that always appeals to me, especially because well, it's New Year's Eve and I'm getting ready to make a brisket. What's the official countdown? It is 9 hours 20 minutes and 47 seconds till New Year's Day. And I always make a corned beef brisket, cabbage, potatoes, and carrots.
Yeah, it's like corned beef. I don't know why it got such a bad name in media. Like, corned beef is delicious.
Corned beef is
corned anything. I feel like is delicious. Like Cornish hens, man. I'm like, God damn! I didn't know that shit would. I didn't know a chicken could be like that, where you think it can't get better or more like perfectly cooked, and you're like, what the fuck? Hold up. But they're I don't see them that frequently. Maybe for good reason, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, corned beef is not like I just again the way people talk about it. It's the same shit with liver too, because like,
Well, I think it's definitely one of those like it has to be prepared a certain way, but it's also really high in sodium because it's extremely cured. It's brined. It's like long-term brined meat. Otherwise, it's just a brisket. But corned beef is one of those things that's amazing because no matter what, it's just got that flavor, and you can make sandwiches out of it. I think the sandwich part is one of the biggest boons to it, because I mean it's you don't always have time to plate up, and sometimes a sandwich is where it's at. But that's the kind of meat that I don't know. It's like there's a lot to it that reminds me of bacon, except it doesn't seem to be nearly as fatty because all of the fat renders out during the cooking process. Well, most of it. Yeah, I'm getting ready to do that. Also, it's my birthday in 9 hours, and that's like my treat to myself. It's interesting. Like, I never really planned, when I was younger, I didn't really plan to do anything on my birthday because there was always a New Year's Eve party to go to. And no matter where I went, there was like some action. But the older I get, the less I want to go anywhere, and the less I want to deal with crowds. And I've been to New York for the ball dropping in Times Square. It's wild. That's a group experience to behold. Anyone who lives in this country who has the means and opportunity to witness the ball drop and to be there with that crowd, I highly recommend it. There are very few experiences like it. It was also cold as can be, and I wish I'd have dressed warmer. But now when I think about it, all I think is, man, I was so cold. My feet were just numb. I couldn't feel my fingertips. We were corralled in these like what amount to like just squared off cages of impromptu barrier, this like metal barrier, right before the ball dropped. Oh yeah, so this was like in 99 to 2000, so it was for the millennium when everyone thought the computers were going to crash and the computer economy itself was going to just fold it on itself, and everyone was going to lose their data because the computers might think it was 1900, even though long before that moment ever happened, that problem had been corrected. And so right as the ball's getting ready to drop, I noticed that a few of the police officers who were near us, and then I realized that all the police officers that were around, they all walked over to these dumpsters and pulled out their riot shields and put helmets on and grabbed batons. It was really unnerving. But nothing happened. And they didn't need their batons or their riot gear. Fortunately. Now with COVID, I guess, being a thing, it's probably not a good idea to go stand in a human corral and breathe heavily for several hours waiting for a light bulb to drop.
Did you end up like wearing diapers? Is that part true?
Yeah, that part was true. You have to wear
Because
diapers.
that's where I'm like, I always hear that where I'm like, I don't know if people, because the idea of like doing that for the ball drop, I'm like, it doesn't seem worth it.
Because you can't get out of the cage once you're in there.
Yeah.
And as the cages fill up, you got to go further down and further away from the street, or further away from Times Square. We were a block away from Times Square. We could see everything. Everything was in sight. It was loud, but you know, I don't even know how many corrals, how many streets away it filled up, but the whole place was full. I've been to concerts with like lower population density. Like big concerts with lower population density. This was huge. It's like the biggest swarm of humans that I think I've ever been a part of. Bonnaroo was tiny compared to this. Bonnaroo was pretty big. But I guess, man, I'm sure people still do this because people still get out and protest, even though COVID's a thing. So I guess that's not as big of a concern for other people as it is for me.
Well, and that's where I'm like, did you feel like it was an exhausting experience where you got sick or some shit after from doing it?
Oh, no, I was fine. I was like 19 years old and healthy as can be. Although I did sleep really, really hard afterwards. It's not easy to stand around in a crowd of people all through the night waiting for the ball to drop in New York. It's cold. In late December, early January, it's cold. Holy shit. It's definitely warmer in Indiana. Oh man, now I'm like considering the practicality of actually going to like New York to experience the ball drop as a thing, from like how much effort does it actually require? Like, I mean, we drove through the night to get there, got parked at Newark airport, rode a bus into New York City, got some food, and then wandered towards Times Square. And when we were done, we took a train to the bus station and got back to the airport, and then got back in the car and drove home. We didn't like try to stay there, so we didn't spend a bunch of money on like housing. I think we slept. On the way back, we pulled over at a rest area and took a nap. I don't think I'd have I've got a lot of go juice, but I don't think I have enough go juice to do that kind of thing anymore. Huh. Also, this is on a very tangential note. This is episode 231.
That's amazing.
I'm really pleased with that. 23, 12, 31. 231. I guess it's no different than like going to a concert or going out to dinner. Like being around a large group of people out in the open is no different from being around a large group of people anywhere at this point. COVID is just a thing.
I don't know which one I feel safer in.
Oh, a concert. New Year's Eve in Times Square, that's got to be on like the FBI and NSA and CIA's like at the top of their list of potential terrorist sites. mean, seriously, that's like one of the biggest congregations of people from all over the place. Just they're corralled. They can't even get anywhere. If they did, there would be a stampede, riot, swarm. Everything would be destroyed. It'd be terrible. I know after the Boston bombing, the Boston Marathon bombing, like Boston proper stepped up everything. Like all the camera surveillance systems, like got a huge update. They have a massive operations control center where they monitor things on a giant grid of big ass TVs, computer monitors. I'd be hard pressed to believe that New York does not have that also, considering, you know, World Trade Center and the other time the World Trade Center got bombed. And actually, I'm kind of surprised just going anywhere that when I don't notice cameras. You got to go like out in the middle of nowhere to not be in range of some kind of camera system anymore. I mean, not counting one's cell phone, of course, because we carry our own surveillance devices with us wherever we go.
Yeah, I think people underestimate that in general, and that's like, I use it to my own advantage in terms of like learning my habits, and it's interesting to see if you have your phone in your pocket, like how a person walks around their space. Because it's like sometimes it'll be very scattered, but then other times you'll start to see like, oh, I'm spending a lot of times in these places, like turning around and moving in circles or whatever. And it's like, knowing what other people can see about me if I have my phone in my pocket is interesting, but knowing how many other people are also generating that type of information makes it like less of a paranoid characteristic of society and more like, I think in certain ways, lots of things having GPS in it makes it more likely or less likely that they'll be stolen. So like, I'm not ever really worried about my phone being stolen. Like, even though it could be, the fact that it's just basically a tracking device is much less likely that somebody's gonna like try to rob me for my phone. Even though it's a whatever, however much it costs, the device is small enough to be taken out of somebody's hand. I think thieves in general are smart enough at this point to not steal active phones that have like SIM cards in them.
That always like blows my mind, the idea that someone's just stealing a cell phone. It's like, these things are practically given away.
Yeah.
One can get, hold on, I'm going to go to D-Lig and see how much the cheapest cell phone option is in this moment. Cell phone.
I mean, you can buy a used one on Amazon.
Let's see. 99, no. Let's see, that's these aren't helping. I gotta do smartphone, I guess. Okay, get a Galaxy One, $200. That doesn't seem very cheap. $70. Track phone blue. T-Mobile, free phone. Samsung Galaxy. Oh no, it's not free. Straight Talk, $40. That's practically free.
Yeah, so a smartphone is gonna run like $60 to $70. It looks like
Anywhere from free to $70, depending on where you go.
I imagine the free one is probably coming with some.
Yeah. Here's an Amazon track phone prepaid for $30.
Yeah.
Like, these things are practically
Fufa Fio. I've never heard of that brand before.
Yeah, $60 Motorola Moto G 5G with stylus track phone, 1 year service, $59.
Man, I wish. On
Apple
the one
Straight
hand,
Talk iPhone SE, $99. $59 for another track phone. Like, these things are practically given away. These are more power. These devices, every single one of these devices that we've mentioned, even the ones that are unheard of, are probably more powerful than the first, like, I don't know, several laptops that I ever had. Like,
oh yeah, there's no, yeah,
like without a doubt, faster. Way faster, way more powerful. These things have eyes, ears, display resolution that those early laptops could never even support. More RAM, faster RAM processors that can like emulate those old computer systems. Like, they're giving them away practically. Walmart Family Mobile, Apple iPhone SE, 64 gigabyte, prepaid, $150. I have an iPhone SE. Oh, that's a third gen. That's newer than the one that I've got. I've got a second gen. Mine's like 3 years old, and it still does everything I need and more. It does things that I don't even realize that I need it to do until it's like, oh crap, this thing can do that shit. Heck yeah.
So did they stop making the folding smartphones then?
It looks like well, no, here's a free Samsung Galaxy Z Flip that has a folding screen. I know that the Microsoft folding screen device has been canned, but it looks like the Galaxy Z is $1,000. Oh God! If I had $1,000 to spend on a computer, it wouldn't be on a phone. It would be on a power supply and a GPU for my existing workstation. Let's see how much, because I know that the power supply is going to run me about $140. I wonder how much GPU can I get for like $800?
Probably a lot, because this one, the phone I have was $800 a few years ago, and it's still like future proof as far as I can tell. Because
no, I mean that's
the main reason I got it.
Your GPU?
Oh no, I thought I was talking about the phone. Sorry.
Okay. No, I'm thinking like how much GPU can you get for about $800 nowadays? Let's find it. Let's see. What's a good?
God, yeah, a lot now.
Yeah, I know. Like that's what I mean. Like, I wouldn't spend $1,000 on a phone. I'm clearly not that market. But how much? I mean, not even $800. Let's say $600. What's available at the $600 price point? 2 months ago, a 7800 XT. Okay. Best graphics cards under 800, under 600.
I mean, I bet you could probably get a 4080 now.
You can get a 4070.
4070? Okay.
Yeah. Brand new. An RX 6800 XT comes in under $600. A RX 3070 Ti comes in with 8 gigabytes of RAM. 4070. It looks like it's the 4070 and the what is that, a 60 something hundred?
There's a 4080 for 858 now.
Holy crap. I don't even play games that can use that much GPU.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody does. Right? Like, unless they have like a I don't know if any game actually takes that much. But
I mean, okay, I can see needing that kind of GPU if I was going to run like four 42-inch displays configured in like a full cockpit type thing.
yeah, something like that.
To play like a flying game. I can see needing that much GPU for something like that, but I wouldn't even put those screens together until I had like the right kind of control interface. Because even with the stick and yoke that I've got, like, man, like I would want to have a specialized rig for that, like where I just have to sit down in it with rudder pedals and extra switches, because I know those switch panels exist. I think if one's gonna go that far, if someone's spending like $600 to $800 on a GPU, they're probably already like totally capable of throwing together that kind of setup. I mean, as I look around, I'm actually not missing any monitors to do this. I just don't have enough GPU to pull that off. Yeah, I'm definitely not shy of computer monitors. Could run them all at like 1080p and it would make everything a lot easier. Shit, I could run everything at like 720p and it would probably be like blisteringly fast. If you have 4 displays and you're playing a flying game, do you really need to have like super high resolution? I mean, in a plane, when you're at like 10 to 20,000 feet, can you even see detail on the ground?
Well, I don't even know if it's about detail so much as
Just frame
how
rate.
far ahead that and how far ahead it can render, or in how far ahead and what would be your perspective, because when I've been playing racing games, I'll turn the frame rate up high, but the rendering low, and it, like, if I hit a certain speed, I can start to see shit on the horizon getting rendered like as I'm approaching it. Whereas if I turn the rendering up higher, that doesn't happen.
Huh. Well, that settles it. I'm just gonna have to install whatchamacallit, Ace Combat on my workstation and see what this thing can actually do. No, that's actually like a testament to the quality of some games, is that I never even bothered to play them on a powerful computer because they were fun enough to play without it. You know, a lot of the I guess third person games that I've played lately, like the quality of story has been improving pretty dramatically. Like every so often I'll play whatever, I don't even know what I've been playing. Just like get whatever's free on like Twitch Prime, and occasionally on like a GOG or Epic or Steam. But what was that game?
Well, but do you know when the games were made? Because what I'm finding is a lot of the stuff that I've been playing was made in like 2018, 2019, as far as like the
Oh no,
person.
I'm still catching up to shit that was released in like 2008 to 2012.
Okay.
So like I don't mean to
Well,
say
I
that the
just
games are getting
played-
better, but like whatever is freely available on the internet lately has been really good.
I just started Alan Wake for the first time.
I think that's what it was. That game is fucked up.
Yeah. It really is. So Ghost Runner is free in the Epic Game Store today.
Ghost Runner. I gotta.
They've had some decent games for free in the last week. Saints Row was yesterday, which was fun.
Featured giveaways. Free games. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. Synced. Heck yeah, I'm gonna claim this now.
Well, another reason I'm going to say it, I've played Ghost Runners. It's pretty fun. It's like hard to get used to because it's first person. Unless you're like used to first person, but the way it's almost like Mirror's Edge with swords. I don't know if you ever played Mirror's Edge.
Mirror's Edge was great. It was really disorienting at first, but once you get used to like clutching the controller for certain activities, I mean, like really clutching it, and also getting used to like holding your, like contorting your hands for periods of time. Like, it's a really fun game. Subliminal Pack, Rocket League.
Well, and as far as the GPU prices, I wonder if the secondhand market is like really where the costs have dropped, because I think a lot of people in the like crypto space and then in the scalping space were like stocking up on shit.
Yeah, but that's
And then
over
the
now.
market dropped out. Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like the market dropped out. Yeah, I guess even the pre-owned 4080s aren't like cheap. Wow, people are still bidding on them. Wow. I'm amazed that people are still bidding on GPUs. Huh. I wonder if did the chip shortage never really like catch back up? Or did the industry never really recover?
Oh, I think that I don't think that the consumer market ever actually recovered, because when crypto kind of ended abruptly, I think that all of those GPUs got bought up by companies that wanted to do machine learning or AI, because those GPUs were already ready to do those things. And because, you know, once they were able to charge absurd prices for video cards, they were never going to stop. It's just like when the wood shortage happened at the beginning of pandemic, and people were willing to pay $90 for a piece of plywood. Which is bullshit, by the way. I don't want to see I don't even know how much a piece of plywood costs. Like in Menards. Okay. Building materials.
Well, damn, that makes me wonder how much of the GPU market got swooped up by like the AI boom.
I bet a lot of it did. Hardwood, plywood. Let's see how much this stuff costs. BCX. No, we want to see how much the expensive panel costs. ACX panels. 3/4 inch. They are. Oh, it's 2x4. Sheathing. Oh, is it? Yeah, but it's still like between $70 to $90 for a piece of 4x8 by 3/4 inch thick plywood. And as much as $140, $150. What the fuck? $170. For wood, for plywood. It doesn't make any sense. The supply chain was hit that hard. Just not enough wood. Or they can just charge that much money for it because that's what people are willing.
Well, how much is inflation though? Because some of the shit never came down because of inflation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Milk and bread didn't go up proportionally as much as plywood did.
Well, the egg shit really was one of the big price jumps where I'm like, this is clearly market manipulation because they did it too fast. So I think when it's gradual, it's easier to like have it stick. But if the price jumps too fast, then it's like there's just going to be too much market resistance from customers who see that jump as being too absurd if it's too fast. Which even then, like a lot of the construction stopped when costs, I mean, the labor costs shot up too, but the material costs went up. Like IKEA shit went way up and now it never came down. So that's a perfect indicator.
Mm. Yeah. I wonder if this is affected the average price of computer. computer combo. Show me your answers, computer combo nader. See, motherboard, RAM, processor, $450, $500, $400, $3, $550. Oh, that no, that's just a different box. These are all like 32 gigabytes of RAM and a beefy processor and a motherboard. Case and a 700 watt power supply for $128. Seems like a pretty decent price. Ugly ass case, $39. Nobody's gonna buy that thing new egg. It's ugly. Let's see what Amazon has to offer for computer combos. Combo bundle. No, wait, I'm looking for this wrong. I should look for gaming computer, right?
I think, I mean, unless you're talking about for building, and that's where I'm like, because that's, gaming computers right now aren't really topping out at the like highest GPUs necessarily. So I think if you look up gaming computers, a lot of them are going to return like 3050s or 4050s potentially.
Yeah.
And
here's a AMD system with a 5800X. So yeah.
See, that's like,
and then this one, or a 3080 Ti, which is what you just said basically. They're 1650. Wait, I have a better GPU than that. I'm not actually looking for a computer. I'm just curious. Okay, here's a RTX 4060 Ti. That's a decent GPU. RX 6400. That's kind of old. Or is that the current generation? Are they the 6 or the 7s? I can't tell you. AMD is hard for me sometimes. Oh, here's a really cool looking computer that has a 4070. It's $2,000, and it has like 3 panels of Lexan. It looks like it's not a traditional box. It has like a corner, like a chunk cut off of it at an angle. This thing's really pretty. Somebody's definitely going to be really like overjoyed to own one of these things. It's just like, it's one of those like, it almost doesn't, it looks more like a terrarium for micro machines or nanites than a computer.
well, and that's another aspect of the gaming computers is like the style of the build and the lighting and all that. The time that they put into it is what some of the stuff is what you're paying for when one's buying the gaming computers. Because it's like, if you break down the individual parts, a lot of times,
oh yeah, no, I can definitely
about,
find a liquid cooling solution for less than and the M2 SSD and a 4070 and how many 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. I can find all of this stuff, and I can probably find the case from China for way less than $2,000. But I'm just curious what's being packaged, because that's like a good way to, I think that's a decent way to inform oneself of what's available. Oh, it's cool. It's got a riser so it can hold the GPU so you can see the fans, I guess. Okay. So this thing's borrowing some.
Well, and the wild shit is like, because of the way the market has played out, you can buy an entire gaming PC for less than the cost of a GPU of equivalent power. Like, in that a newer model of equivalent power compared to the GPU in the machine, and the entire machine then is like sometimes going to cost you less, which is like, it sounds weird, but we're at a weird time for PCs. Like the GPU, it was wild that the GPU market blew up the way it did, and the CPU market was just kind of like, "Hey, I'm over here. You guys want to pump and dump me? Cool." But nobody did.
It's because they couldn't fucking process shit the way that they just couldn't do it. They were.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a central processing system, not a specialized processing system. Yeah, the specialized processing unit sounds like way cooler than graphics processing unit. They made those though. They were just GPUs that didn't have any I/O on the back, and they sold out instantly. And I don't think anyone ever got any. And by the time they even made it to market, they were already outdated.
it's wild though, because like you would think the way gaming is happening, that there's like some sort of, I guess the PS5 shortage has sort of waned off now, but it wasn't even the fact that there was a PS5 shortage now, that the frequency of AAA games has slowed to the point where people don't have as much excitement about gaming in the console arena as they do in the PC arena, which it goes back and forth. Because people will say like, "Oh, you didn't have individuals lining up to get PCs for their kids like they did for PS5s." It's like, well, that may be true, but PS5s didn't get scalped at the same markup as GPUs did. So there's like all these things that one could frame like to make it seem as if one is more valued than the other. It's more so because there's no like unified PC platform that everybody can be like, "Oh, I'm a PC Sega or whatever, PC Microsoft." Because there's such a variety of PC build types, we don't get that same type of binary us versus them,
Yeah.
like debate on the internet. But then that also makes it seem like there's no unified PC crowd. But what it really looks like is, if you look at the PC communities, it's a bunch of individual niche gaming communities. So it'd be like the World of Warcraft community, or the Hearthstone community, or the I don't know. I can't think of any computer games like that are specific to PC, like off the top of my head, but it's like broken down by game instead of by hardware in the PC area. So it's like, I don't know if that's a good thing for gaming or not, but the way it's like the tribalism in consoles is around the console itself and not individual games. Whereas like in PC, the tribalism is almost exclusively around the games. So that's not to say, I think that may be why PC hardware doesn't go through like the same type of it's like no kids asking their parents to get or asking Santa for like a Radeon GPU or whatever. Like kids gonna ask for like a PS5 or an Xbox or something like that. Like no kid's gonna ask for a computer. Like in that framing of computers are like abstract except for apples.
Yeah.
Apples are like the only they're the only like specific computers in a lot of young kids' minds.
But what kid is going to be specifically going to say, Santa, I need a 12 gigabyte NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070, and I need 32 gigabytes of 5200 megahertz DDR5 RAM. I also need 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. No kid's going to say that shit.
And I doubt any kids asking for like an Apple computer with the fucking ARM technology or anything. No kids asking for that either. So I don't even think it's necessarily like Apple's.
Maybe a college student.
Right, of course. Yeah. And that's like when we're dealing with adults, like Apple's branding starts to get towards that console identity marketing. But even then, that's where they control like 10 to 20% of the market for PCs, not like 50%. Because that's where when we start looking at Sony and Microsoft, they're dominating like 30% of the console market. And then you got Nintendo, and it's like, I don't even know. Nintendo must get damn near all the kids. So then Nintendo must be getting like 40 to 50% of the entire market, which is where something like that in computers is just.
So a Switch is like anywhere from $200 to $300 something dollars. It looks like. Oh no, $300. Looks like $300. $266 for the Switch Lite. Switch OLED $299. Neon blue, neon red Joy-Con $259. I think the Switch seems pretty affordable too. Legend of Zelda edition $450.
Holy shit, Apple dropped to 8.6% of the global market share in computers.
They shouldn't have alienated their creative user base that is invested in hardware that's not going to adapt nearly as quickly as their freaking bullshit ARM architecture. They had a really good thing going. They had a complete, oh my god. So this is the reason that being on Intel was such a good thing for Apple, because every PC user out there on the face of the earth that was like, haha, you're using an Intel processor, eventually ends up that's recording, eventually ends up in a real studio where they're using an OS X based system, and they're using Pro Tools, and they're using like the nicest, juiciest, sweetest hardware on earth, and they say, holy crap, this is so fucking cool. This is like the luxury car of fucking operating systems. Because when you're integrated with that level of hardware, all of a sudden it's like, this is the best shit ever. It's doable in Windows. It's always been possible to do. Well, not always. It's only been possible more recently, but you know, that was a good thing for them, because then people would see this beautiful Mac Pro trash can looking thing and say, oh, I want one of those too. And then now they've gotten back to looking like the Power PC or the Mac Pro Tower. It looks more like that, and that's also cool. But it was always integrated with hardware. And when they moved to a completely new architecture, it's like, we're already invested in this shit. How do you expect us to spend more money for something that we're not even going to be able to use our computer on or our software on? We have to wait and then buy into a whole new subscription model. Fuck that. So for the guy that has like $20,000 to $40,000 in interfaces and cards, and or even if it's just so they can just firewire, so they can just chain everything. And then they've got all sorts of other hardware and software that's like ancient and never getting updated for an M2 platform or an M1 platform or whatever M Pro X Ultra crap they've got going on. They just lost all of those customers. The people that are willing to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on a desktop computer, they lost every single one of those people that is like, no, I'm not going to spend another $20,000 plus another $40,000 to buy new software to use my hardware that I already own. That's how ludicrous what they did is. So at that point, when companies like DaVinci are giving away their software and tying it to hardware, which is the way it should be anyways, and they're trying to be as platform agnostic as possible, because lo and behold, they make a version of their software that runs in Linux and they'll just give it to you anyways. Like, all of a sudden it becomes apparent like what a lot of these companies are actually doing. And I like Apple in terms of like their integration of hardware and software, because that stuff works really well, because they like demand, like, if you're going to work with our system, you've got to meet these expectations, and here's all the stuff you need. You don't need anything else. If you can't do it with this stuff, you can't do it. And then industrial grade hardware manufacturers and their software teams meet those expectations, and they have rock solid systems. And that's not to say that doesn't exist on a Windows-based platform, but for, like 20 or almost 30 years, it was still an Apple creative world. And I think in the last decade and a half, it's changed considerably. Like, the hardware that I loved that was Mac only for the longest time it works flawlessly in Windows now. We're using it right now. My trusty old Motu. Like, a lot of the barriers I think have dissolved, but they made it even worse for themselves by being like, yeah, we're going to use this we're going to just transition away from, a common architecture that would encourage people to.
That's one. So it's one thing for the barriers to dissolve, but it takes a certain type of person to go through that former border, which I don't think a lot of people then do. In terms of, so when I first found out DaVinci existed, I'm like, oh shit, the way that they're doing these things makes it so you don't have to have a ton of money to get into video editing or, destructive editing or some shit like that, where then there was GarageBand, and then digital. I forget what the name of the program is, but it comes with. It used to come with Macs. I don't know if it still does, but it was like Digital Performer.
I love Digital Performer.
Yeah, Digital Performer. You can do damn near anything that you really need to do in Digital Performer. And if you can't do it in Digital Performer,
they make a Windows version of it now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But it's like the flexibility. So I learned piano roll notation in Reason, and then went from Reason to Digital Performer. And then in many ways, I felt like Digital Performer was easier to use and superior, versus Reason as a paid platform obviously allows you to do more things, but I didn't necessarily need to do those things. So there's certain times when I'm going in and modifying a sound wave and doing frequency modulation. Other times I'm not. So the necessity to have both of those things in the same place isn't really always my needs as a musician weren't always am I going in to do equalization and sound manipulation, or am I going in to do musical melodies? Because those two things aren't necessarily going to happen on the same day.
Oh, no.
And the more I separated them, the better I got at doing each one. So it was I'd spend a day working on sounds and then spend a day using those sounds.
Oh yeah,
and
sound
not,
design and
like,
composition are too dissimilar to do simultaneously. It's too easy to get lost making paint.
It's easy to say that now, but when you're like learning, it's like a curve where you think you can go in and do both of those things in the same day successfully. And that's, like the better I got at both, the more I separated them, which is, again, that's when I started to get less focused on the tools and more focused on the outcome, because it was like, if I was good enough at using my tools, it didn't matter which one. If I was using Digital Performer or Reason, I get the actual desired outcome regardless. And so to me, that's where it allowed me to focus less on what was present during the creation to validate whether it's of high quality or not. And that's, I wasn't necessarily hung up on it, but
man, I remember
you can get like studio quality production if you know what you're doing.
Sure.
Don't need a studio.
I remember using Performer before it was Digital Performer, when Motu only made what should I call it? MIDI interfaces. They hadn't even made an audio interface yet, so they only made Performer, and it was just for writing MIDI, and it all fit in the tiniest little monochrome screen, and then it slowly got bigger, and then I think once they created an audio engine. I can't even remember what it's called. Let's see, it's Autodesk. Yeah, they created this audio recording engine called Autodesk, and then eventually that gets integrated into Performer and becomes Digital Performer. It's like, I think it's the most intuitive of the digital audio workstations, and what I really liked about it is that it doesn't seem to pretend to be it doesn't seem to pretend to make movies. I'm sure it can handle video now because they're on version 11, but the version of it that I remember, it wasn't pretending to confuse itself with nonlinear editing in that regard. It was just, let's compose some music. And I always liked that about it. Man, it's really pretty. They've got some really cool integrations now. I haven't looked at this website in years. The last time I looked at Digital Performer, it was like version 9 or version 8 or something like that.
Yeah, it must have been 2007 or 8 last time I looked at Digital Performer.
Holy crap, they've got integrations with everything. This is like, I mean, it should, because it's like the grandpappy. No, it's not. I think it's like the first one on Mac, at least. And that was like that and OG Cubase on Atari. And I think there was another one. Oh, no, there's a converter platform that eventually becomes Pro Tools. I can't remember who made it, but it was created for George Lucas and his stuff. Good.
Well, it's just like, okay,
good
I learned
gravy. I didn't even real. Okay, so I just kind of had this whole experience looking at this web. There's just this one page about Digital Performer, and they've added so much crap to this thing that, like, it's still all oriented towards like making music though, so that's kind of cool.
Well, and it looks like it's paid now, so that's like one downside, but I get it. Like, they need $500 if they're gonna. Yeah, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
But that's like, okay, I started editing on Pro Tools, and then once I learned about Audacity, it's like, as long as the computer's powerful enough, like, I can get damn near as good quality as using Pro Tools hardware. M Audio because M Audio's hardware started getting less and less quality as like digital music production became more accessible.
There's a DAW that I really like called Reaper. It's It's kind of like a freemium. You can use it for free as long as you want, basically. But if you want to make anything for real, you have to give them like $60. But it is a fully, it was like basically a crowd, not crowdsourced, but crowd designed, almost open source type situation where these developers were hanging out at Gear Sluts for like several years, just asking questions like, hey, what kind of features do you guys need? And then they eventually just wrote some software. I could be really wrong about that, but that was my experience, because I remember them appearing all over Gear Sluts before it became Gearspace. And now they're on Reaper 7. And it looks like it's a fully featured DAW. It's been a fully featured DAW since like version 4. But I'm confident saying that anything that one can do in Digital Performer or Pro Tools or Cubase or whatever that one that PreSonus makes, Studio One, any of those, Traction, like this thing can do it too. And just like every DAW, it has its own little quirks and learning curves and special powers, but you know, it's a pretty capable piece of software that costs almost nothing. I've actually seen entire like YouTube channels where audio engineers like to, who like, there's, I can't remember the guy's Glenn something, or he makes heavy metal. He uses Reaper. His mixes sound incredible. Spectra Sound Studios, I think is what it is. Spectra Media Group. But yeah, his mixes sound incredible. And occasionally I'll see someone else, some other engineers' videos, and they're using whatever was bundled with their hardware. And their stuff sounds incredible. I don't think it's the hardware or even the software. It's the person using the machine. I think that's always been the case, but there's a lot of mythology built around, you know, insert ancient preamp microphone combo. Insert you know, vintage compressor of choice. You know, there's always some mystery about, or mythology around like certain consoles even, and the workflows that came out of them. But in a digital environment, all of that stuff is some kind of strange, it's an abstraction that one could apply, but you don't have to, because like in a DAW environment, you know, we can go down to the sample level and affect changes to just a single sample if we want to be that granular about it. But nobody has time for that. Actually, wait. Okay, yeah, so there's an electronic musician, BT. He's in the Guinness he's a Guinness World Record holder for the most edits in a recorded piece of music called Somnambulist. And it has like 6,178 vocal edits done by hand. But he also, what was that? There was an NSYNC song that he did.
Yeah, I feel like he did a lot of stuff, right? Didn't he do like Britney Spears or some shit?
Well, he did, I think it was Bye Bye Bye, and that was like where the stutter thing kind of comes from. He did a bunch of manual editing on that song too. But then he helped to develop plugins that do the stutter. Or maybe it's pop. Okay, yeah. in the NSYNC song Pop, he did 3,642 manual edits.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Like, what the crap? But what normal person has time for that kind of thing? That's like an athlete. That's like an athlete level type of thing.
BT has almost 1,500 appearances in various forms of media.
Yeah, that dude is like prolific.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, prolific is really putting it nicely. That's like an understatement practically.
Well, and there's a few people like Richard Humpty Vision, John Digweed, BT, what's his name?
Carl Cox.
Carl Cox. Some of those people were just like Tiesto. Some of them were just like working constantly for that first wave of electronic music. I mean, I won't call it the first wave. That 90s, mid 90s to early 2000s wave where it was like really popular, but not. It was like on the crux of becoming as mainstream as it finally became. Because at one point, I don't know if you remember when Adult Swim started running like drum and bass during their bumpers or during their commercials and shit. So it's like that was about when I want to say Basement Jaxx Red Alert is when electronic music really went mainstream because it started getting used in like I want to say like cookie commercials or something. It was something stupid. But like once Basement Jaxx,
there was that Eclipse commercial with Dirty Vegas or something like that.
Yeah, that was definitely the Dirty Vegas Days Go By song.
I mean, I remember hearing like drum and bass on car commercial on the back end of car commercials. There was drum and bass everywhere at the end of the 90s.
Yeah, Basement Jaxx did a Coke commercial. Pringles, where's your head at?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever Coke used Basement Jaxx, that's really when I want to point at that video as like that's the most mainstream electronic moment, I want to say. And then the Dirty Vegas, because people were actually like listening to that song too. Like after the commercial, like with the Basement Jaxx, people were listening to the track before the Coke commercial. With the Dirty Vegas track, people were listening to the song after the commercial, which is like, I feel like that's like when you could start introducing electronic music videos or electronic music songs in commercials, and then people would listen to them from the commercial rather than the other way around.
That can never happen again, though, because the song was cooler than the car it was supposed to help sell.
Oh, yeah. And I think they realized that didn't actually probably result in the car selling more, but it resulted in the track
selling
getting
like
more
crazy.
So nobody ever did that ever again.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. We helped you promote your album. Good for you. But we do not sell any more vehicles. Which, yeah,
man.
what the fuck does a good song have to do with how good a car is? Like,
absolutely
those
nothing.
two things. Yeah, this is where those Madison Avenue men have really fucked up everybody's perception of how to approach things. Like, oh, this thing has your attention. There's shiny things and dancing, and now it wants you to buy something. Maybe you shouldn't think about buying that thing because they've been manipulating you into thinking about buying that thing. That should be a reason not to buy that thing. And that's where like,
yeah, where are the dancing bears when I'm driving this car? Like, where do they come out? Do they live in the trunk or something? Do I feed them?
Right. Yeah, I'm at the point where if I'm thinking about getting something and then I see an ad for it, I'm like, I'm not gonna get it now, just because I don't want it to feel like the ad worked on me, even though I was already thinking about that thing.
I do have her like when I'm thinking about getting something, and then the computer is like, hey, check this thing out. You might actually be interested in it. And lately, because I finally just said, fine, whatever, just track my crap and suggest my stuff, fine, whatever. I'm finally seeing what people are saying and seeing some cool shit. I still see a bunch of crap, though, that I can't. Maybe I've opened up a weird like faucet that's giving me like good and bad things. You know, eventually something's got to give, and I think I'm just like you. I don't have enough energy to constantly fight YouTube. I'll just get up and go do something else. Like it's not actually that, not like a life-ending thing. I can get up, I can go to the bathroom, I can get a snack, I can walk around the room and stretch a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. I just wish I wasn't getting ads about, you know, I don't need to see the same channel give me the same rehearsed, hey, I use this VPN every time because I'm doing shady shit and I like to hang out and pretend I'm hanging out on the fucking dark web. I'm not doing any of that crap. So, and even if I was, I wouldn't be advertising, check out the VPN I use to hang out on the dark web with. God, it's like to be the dumbest thing ever. I think it's disingenuous for me to talk about, like, yeah, use this VPN, because if you live in a police state where your government restricts freedom of speech and is going to come knocking on your door for having ideas, like, I don't want to be the person that gives a guy in, like, China a bad idea that lands them in jail. Shit.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, but there's this element of like,
I mean, I get why to use a VPN. There are things
you can do. I ran a lantern node while I was in Turkey because it's like, knowing that people have information restricted, and like, yeah, I'm gonna I know how to do some shit about it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna let people access information through my computer through a VPN, because fuck the government for fucking trying to stop them. Where it's like, I'm not going to tell them which VPN to use, but if somebody's going to use Lantern, they can piggyback off my shit. Where again, you don't really, when you're running a Lantern node, you're not really like telling people about it. They're just like, if they know how to use it, then they use it.
Yeah, I know, but that's because you're adhering to the first and second rules of Fight Club.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the idea that someone who's got a channel is like, oh yeah, I've got a totally legit monetized channel and I'm also marketing this VPN. It's like, man, what are they actually doing? Why do they need to market a VPN? They've got a completely legit channel that's monetized.
I'm also skeptical of people who try to get somebody to pay for a VPN, because it's like, if you really need to use a VPN, that's like, why would you make somebody pay for that instead of finding a free alternative? Because there's definitely free ones out there.
Oh yeah.
Which, yeah, it's like, it's weird where, especially in America, if you're using a VPN in America to then pirate stuff, like, you don't really even need to do that. Like, there's legal ways to pirate that you don't need a VPN to do. Because like, my thing is, even if you use a VPN, you torrent some shit, they're gonna track your ass. Like, it's just a matter of if they're gonna flag it. Like torrents, I don't fuck with torrents.
Yeah,
that's one thing I do not do.
I don't like the locally hosting software aspect of torrents. If I can't find a stream I don't care if the stream's accessing a torrent because I'm not storing that shit, and I'm not acting as a seed.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and that's where the one time in the last 5 years that I did use a torrent, I literally knew that they were gonna flag it. I'm like, I know this is gonna get flagged, but I can't find the stream anywhere, so I'm gonna download the fucking Bob's Burgers movie and expect that fucking IP letter. And sure enough, within 12 hours in my email, we see that you've downloaded this into the actual property owned by Fox, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yep. Okay, fuck out of my, and I know you guys own the shit, but fuck out of my internet traffic. Go get somebody who's doing something really illegal, who's hurting somebody. Go get them and stop fucking with me because I just wanted to watch the fucking Bob's Burgers movie. And that's how I felt at the time. But I'm like, I knew that shit was going to happen. But that's why I don't do torrents, because it's like, man, even if you use a VPN, that shit is basically just all honeypots. Even if they're working torrents, they're just watching that shit and waiting.
Yeah.
I think they're more concerned with the uploads than the downloads, because I didn't even get flagged for downloading it. I got flagged for uploading it because I fucking accidentally left Ustream up. Or uTorrent, not Ustream. And fucking uTorrent, somebody else started downloading the seed I had, and it was like, I think one person, maybe two people downloaded it, but that was what flagged it, was the upload.
Yeah.
Which is where I'm like, yeah, I did it. But what you gonna do about it? What you gonna do? You gonna fucking sue me over Bob's Burgers? No, you're not.
It's not even their property.
Right, yeah, of course. Fox don't really give a fuck.
Fox doesn't care.
No.
Xfinity doesn't actually care. They just want to let you know that they know that what you're looking at or something. Which is even weirder. It's like, who the hell cares? It's on the internet. If they really wanted it to not be on the internet, they could do something about it.
Exactly. That's ultimately why I'm not gonna care more than them, because exactly like you said, if they really wanted to fucking block all the access to that shit, they could.
Oh, they could do it very easily. It'd be like several dozen keystrokes followed by enter, and then they would propagate that across entire networks, and they would say, hey, if you want your data to transfer here, you're gonna, through our infrastructure, you're going to comply. If not, have fun not being accessed unless people are willing to go through extreme measures. And it's really straightforward. If they didn't want to do it, they could.
Well, on that note, obviously the ISPs could do it, but if Google really wanted to stop pirating, that's who really could stop it. Because at the end of the day, the capacity for me to find pirate links, that's all on Google. And if they wanted to stop that shit, they could turn that shit off yesterday. So I'm always Google is clearly a means for the United States government to run surveillance on people. But at the same time, Google's the only reason we can pirate the fuck out of everything. So it's like this weird double-edged sword that I don't know which side is doing the most cutting.
Well, it helps the economy in ways that have been, calculated. There is economic activity that exists, and otherwise these places wouldn't exist. Somehow traffic drives the internet, which keeps other things happening. I don't know. There's a way that all this stuff somehow is a bonus.
Exceptional Radio.
Exceptional Randos Show is produced live in Sunroom Studios' Base Capsule and in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Exceptional Radio.